A few months back, I was doing my usual weekend email checking and noticed that I had received an interesting offer from someone who sounded familiar. His name was Mancakes. The first thing I thought to myself upon seeing that name was, wait, wasn't that the guy that beat Dark Souls 3 with a candlestick? If that guy's reaching out to me, I better hear what he has to say. With my interest already piqued, I read the rest of the message and saw that he wanted to collaborate on a Dark Souls 2 challenge video. And you know I can't say no to a DS2 challenge. Eventually, he came back to me with a specific idea in mind for the collab. He wanted to exchange ideas, or styles if you will. While his videos are more centered on accurate portrayals of a character or theme, for example, beating Dark Souls 3 as a baker, my videos are more focused on complex rule sets, sometimes a little too complex, that require you to swap out equipment constantly. I really liked this idea, and quickly gave him a prompt for a challenge run in DS2. My idea for him was to beat DS2 using only NPC gifts, since the variety of NPC gifts is one of my favorite little quirks about DS2, and he accepted it. If you're interested in that, it'll be on his channel, and of course, I'll link it in the description of this video. As for my challenge, well, I'll let him tell you the prompt first.
Dear Elium Lois, I hope this challenge idea finds you well. In response to your challenge for me, I have decided to curse you with the lore-accurate Iron Golem run. Great axe in the left hand, heavy load, and composite alloy armor at all times. Good luck, my friend. You will certainly need it in the land of Drangleic.
Even though the Iron Golem's weapons and armor are not present in DS2, I will try my best to mimic it with DS2 items. So I added a few extra things to enhance our Golem, and don't worry, we discussed this beforehand, so it's not breaking any rules. I really wanted something to mimic the wind attack of the Golem axe, since the regular Great Axe doesn't have it, so I'll be using a chime to cast Emit Force to supplement my Great Axe. The only other thing I added was a last-minute thing I thought of that sounded really cool, the Vanquisher seal for powerful fist attacks, since there is no Dragonbone Fist in DS2. Once again, these are just extra fun things we can use situationally. I'll still be relying on my Great Axe for most of the run. This isn't a weapon, but for boss fights, I will be buffing with Iron Flesh for added accuracy, as well as being overloaded even when the buff isn't active. I wanted to make sure that I couldn't dodge because I wanted to fight as similar to the real thing as I could. My goal is to be a tank like the real thing, so if I have to take every hit, I'll take every hit, and I won't stop attacking until I'm toppled over. With all of the details of the build out of the way, it's time to get to work and start building our Golem. Mancakes specifically told me I could use the hand axe until I get to the part of the game where I can buy the Great Axe, and since the bandit starts with the hand axe, I chose that class for the challenge, even if it may not be the most optimal for the build. While we're setting everything up, I'll leave on the default armor for now, but I won't have to wear it for long as I can farm the old Ironclad set from the Ironclad soldiers in the first area. There's a few of them scattered around the map, so we should be able to get the full set relatively quickly. It doesn't necessarily look like the Iron Golem, but any iron armor is good enough, so an Iron Turtle will have to do for now. After I get the full set, I have enough souls to put some extra levels into strength, which we're gonna need to wield the Great Axe later on. I use the remaining souls to buy a branch off Malentia, then buy the Silver Cat ring so we can go to the gutter to pick up our Pyromancy flame. I'm temporarily joining the Company of Champions in order to get Awe Stones to drop from invaders. After all, we'll be encountering quite a few of them as we head below. As you can see, I took off all my equipment just so I can survive the initial fall. Once I reach the Grave of Saints, I put it back on straight away, as it would be stupid to fight Roy without armor anyway. With the buff he's getting from me being in the Covenant, he's honestly really scary, so I have to try to space him out and bait him to switch back and forth between his weapons. He wasn't so bad, but the next invader won't be so forgiving. Melinda the Butcher is the only way to get the Great Axe before the Lost Bastille, but the drop is not guaranteed, so if you really want this weapon, I would make a backup save beforehand. I didn't do that because I wanted to let fate decide if I was ready for its power. Despite the long journey I made to get here, it wasn't meant to be, and the game found me undeserving of the Great Axe. Defeated, I used a homeward bone to warp back to the surface, only to be taunted once more by a timely loading screen. It seems we have no choice but to use the hand axe for the first few bosses. But before we're ready for our first boss, we need one more thing. I bought a branch earlier so I could free Rosabeth and buy Iron Flesh. Unfortunately, this is the only copy we'll ever get, so casts will be scarce until we can get more spell recovery items. After frantically skimming the wiki for all the soul items I'd missed, I had enough levels to get a single attunement slot. That's all we need for Iron Flesh, and now for the moment we've all been waiting for, it's time for the Iron Golem to take on its first boss. The last giant is the first obstacle that we'll need to overcome. Even though I've played this game many times, it still functions as a tutorial boss in this run, because it'll teach me how I need to play to be a successful Iron Golem. Many of the tactics I pick up from this fight will be things that I use for the entire playthrough, like healing even when it doesn't seem like you need to, for one. In these earlier stages of the run with no herbs, I need to be extra careful because Iron Flesh is going to be carrying me by boosting my defenses. As soon as it wears off, I won't survive long enough to tank through most attacks. For this particular fight, I have to have pretty good luck as well, and hope that he doesn't spam the stomp. What I want is for my character to get knocked back. That way, at least I have a chance to heal, but if I'm unlucky enough to be positioned directly under his foot, I'll be pancaked instead, then I'll be stuck in the vortex. As long as I stay on top of my healing, I can get out of most of these dangerous situations. On my winning attempt, I learned another valuable lesson about the importance of luck in this run. If I were just one step further from him, I would have been caught by his arm here. This one instance of good luck gave my life gems enough time to cancel out further damage. All we need to do is be aggressive so we don't waste this opportunity. There we go, one boss down, 40-something to go. An Iron Golem needs to be tanky. Naturally, I'll be leveling Vigor next. Before I challenge another boss, I'll be taking a short break to hunt down some invaders, and add more awe stones to my collection. Throughout the run, I'll be alternating between the one-handed and two-handed moveset of the axe for variety. The Iron Golem typically holds it in one hand, but I don't see a reason why it wouldn't two-hand it when necessary. Besides, that would be needlessly restrictive. When I'm ready to challenge another boss, I go to the Pursuer first for a quick path to the coveted Great Axe, as well as the ring of blades it drops. I ran into the same problem here that I had with the last giant, and kept getting knocked down before I could get a chance to attack. I swear it was like the Pursuer was sentient and purposely stalling me out until Iron Flesh ran out, because he did nothing but this running slash for the entirety of the fight until it wore off. Then he finally did a different attack as if to not make me suspicious. Since that was more difficult than anticipated, maybe I should try something easier so I can level up first. The Dragonrider is always a safe bet. I even have experience fighting this overloaded from my 10k challenge. I know I can't cheese it since I can't roll, but it's worth a shot, so I'll stay on the edge of the path just in case he has any impulses. That didn't work out, but like I said, I have done this before, so it didn't take long for me to adjust myself to the timing of his attacks and know when a knockdown is coming. However, none of that was caught on camera since I had the recording paused for some reason, so instead I'll just have to knock Lycia off a cliff to fill the void. Hey, don't worry, we'll have several more of those guys to fight later on to make up for that, so it's best we move on with the run and put some much needed points into Vigor before our rematch with the Pursuer. While I was making progress, my Iron Golem still found itself weighed down by the penalties of being a lefty in a right-handed world, carrying the burden of an increased stamina cost and a decreased amount of damage. Perhaps I should have switched to the two-handed moveset to help with that issue, but it was clearly possible to do this with one hand if the conditions were right. All we have to do is adapt. If we need extra damage, we'll get it one way or another. We killed Lycia already, which means we already have an easy source of large Titanite shards from this respawning giant basilisk. So why don't we just upgrade our axe to +6? An Iron Golem needs to be strong after all. Of course, damage isn't the only way to adapt to a fight. You also need to exploit the weaknesses of your enemies. Just a simple change made a huge difference in this fight. I simply started spamming the heavy attack instead of the light attack in order to break the Pursuer's stance frequently. But let's not forget the role luck played in our victory. This grab would have shifted the fight back in his favor had I not been in a weird spot that stopped it from connecting. And finally, the Pursuer isn't the only one with finicky hitboxes. I can tell you right now that axe was nowhere near him, but if the game counts it as a hit, who am I to argue? Even the most undeserved victory is a victory in my book. If it's mine, that is. At long last, we can purchase the Great Axe from Macduff and truly begin the run. This is going to be the only weapon I'll be using for the rest of the playthrough, so I might as well upgrade it as much as I can. Before that, I'll need some more strength, so I can at least two-hand it. It takes 32 strength to wield it with one hand, so I'll work on that before I fight any other bosses. With the Great Axe now upgraded to +7, it should be very formidable against the enemies in the earlier areas. The first place I go to is the No Man's Wharf in order to pick up my first copy of Emit Force from a corpse. That's all I need to do in this place for now. I could fight the Flexile Sentry, but I'd rather go through Huntsman's Copse instead to get the rest of the souls I need for 32 strength. Plus, I'll get more Awstones along the way from the invaders. Going through both of those areas and killing everything was enough to finish with strength for the time being. I don't want to neglect my stamina this time, so I'll start focusing on endurance next. The Skeleton Lords are a case where the two-handed moveset is superior in most cases, especially when there are still skeletons roaming about. The two-handed light attacks are swings rather than slams, so the Great Axe will cover a wider area and clear out more skeletons in one hit. Believe it or not, the Skeleton Lords were the more difficult part of the fight. I mean, I still got wobbled by basic skeletons the whole time, but at least they're up in my face and in Great Axe range. Meanwhile, the Skeleton Lords, especially the Mage, would not stop backing away at full speed and dragging the fight out for another 5 minutes. Why did I think it was a good idea to switch to the one-handed moveset? Do you see what I've been dealing with for the past 10 minutes? This would have been a situation where I would use Emit Force if I only had it. The Great Axe must just have a very strange hitbox. I seriously wasn't expecting that slam to hit them both. Maybe my Great Axe has a wind attack after all. I'm committed to accuracy in this run, so I'm buying the Royal Soldier helm since it's the first one I've seen that slightly resembles the Iron Golem's helm. It's not a perfect match or anything, but it will have to do for now. We already cleared the area, so it would make the most sense to fight Flexile Sentry next. This is without a doubt the easiest boss I've encountered so far. This fight meets the expectations you normally have when you say you want to be a tank build. I actually was tanking through most of the hits this time, and could do more damage to the boss than it was doing to me. Moving on to the Lost Bastille, we have a few bosses to fight here. Unfortunately, both of them are group bosses. In order to unlock both of them, we need to fight the Ruined Sentinels first. Just like any other time you fight the Sentinels, if you get knocked down with all three still alive, you might as well just give up. These guys can be tricky when you're overloaded. When all my casts of Iron Flesh run out, I'm practically defenseless against their unending spins and swings. The solution for this is to save one cast for the other two after the initial Iron Flesh I use runs out. Yahim on his own shouldn't cause too many problems. For the other two, I just have to hope I can survive long enough to kill at least one. In this run, we need to remember the two L's: luck and life gems. Come to think of it, I killed the Skeleton Lords already, so I could have farmed Desert Sorceresses for infinite herbs. I never remember these things when I need them. Anyways, that's enough to get our endurance to 20. That leaves us in a good spot for the gargoyles. Honestly, I think the hardest part was killing all the enemies in the belfry so I could pull the lever in peace. The actual gargoyle fight wasn't so bad, surprisingly. They have a few of those annoying attacks that knock me down, which of course they spammed, but other than that, this was a relatively easy fight since each individual gargoyle dies quickly from the damage of the Great Axe. After the fight, I'll have enough levels for 30 vigor. Instead of going to the Lost Center after that like a normal person, I decided to go back down to the Black Gulch and challenge the Rotten for what I thought would be easy souls. It didn't quite work out, but it did bring my attention to a problem that I need to solve sooner rather than later, which is the short duration of Iron Flesh. Originally, I was going to stick with the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring +1 that drops from Desert Sorceresses, but I was curious about the +2 and wondered why I couldn't remember where it was. I see. Well, even if I really felt like killing 1,000 invaders, that's not even possible to do in the time I have to complete this challenge. So we turn to Cheat Engine for this one. With our fancy ring, we've boosted the duration of Iron Flesh from 25 to 35 seconds. This boost is so good that after slowly approaching Najka, I get to hit her exactly one time before it runs out. She is not very merciful to me either. It seems that every boss with a grab is acutely aware of the fact that it's this build's biggest weakness. I can neither tank it nor block it, so I have to eat every grab I get caught by. Even greater is the fact that she applies Toxic with her stingers, but at least she was polite enough to let me properly select a Divine Messing in the menu before killing me. She took a long time to burrow on this attempt, so I had enough time to get her very low on health, which means we need to try to kill her when she's still emerging. Now we must go to the conveniently located stone platform directly to our right, so we don't get hit by her on her way back to the surface. See that tiny sliver of stamina I had left for another hit? I knew it would be worth it to level endurance early. I'll leave my endurance where it is for now, because we need to get the bare minimum amount of faith to use Emit Force. But it's probably even more urgent to get another attunement slot so we can actually attune the spell. I can do that pretty quickly if I sell some things to Gavlin. I don't have the Token of Fidelity in my inventory yet, but we might as well open the way to Targray regardless, since it'll have to be done eventually. My Great Axe is upgraded to plus 10 at this point, so my damage against the old Dragonslayer is kind of ridiculous. I guess that was part of the reason why I wasn't healing as much. My life gems would only be wasted against an enemy as weak as him. Without life gems in the equation, it all comes down to luck. Ironically, my greed ended up saving me, as constantly attacking meant my character was ducking under his spear if I whiffed. He also started backing off towards the end and perfectly set himself up for a jump attack. Let's keep the momentum going and jump straight into the next boss fight. I'm going back in the direction of the Iron Keep because there's some equipment I'd like to get from there. The Covetous Demon is the first enemy that stands in our way. This is one that I think has the potential to be annoying for this build, mainly if we get caught by the grab that removes all our equipment. But in a typical pathetic Covetous Demon fashion, he never even used the grab and simply let me hack him to pieces until he had no choice but to roll around in agony to defend himself. To his credit, it did almost kill me. Now that we've infiltrated Earthen Peak, we'll have to play the role of Prometheus and grant our golem the ability to set the windmill aflame. The Iron Golem has yet another mythical encounter as we face the boss of this level. Mytha also has a grab to worry about, just like the last few bosses have, but with the amount of damage we're doing to her, it doesn't feel as threatening. She wasn't in a rush to do any of her other ranged attacks either. Technically, she did do her grab from halfway across the room. Interesting choice. Thanks for the free buff opportunity, I guess. Now I can get 20 faith. I can't wait to try out Emit Force soon. I realized that there aren't enough invaders to get all the Allstones I need for the ring, and I want to get it as soon as possible so I have more time to use it. It turns out the shades in the forest will drop Allstones, which I didn't realize before, and since they don't have any other drops, it's a very easy farm that can be done right next to a bonfire. Once we've got our 50 Allstones, we can head back to Majula to claim our reward. We can get a few more levels after all that farming as well. Continuing to Iron Keep, I managed to get one of the armor pieces I was looking for on the first attempt, the Alonne Captain Armor. I think this one resembles the Iron Golem chest piece the most out of everything I've seen so far, so I'll be adding it to the collection. I don't really need anything else from Iron Keep just yet. I'd actually like to try another boss I missed earlier. Now that I have a ranged attack, I want to see if we have any chance against the Executioner's Chariot. I've been too scared to try this one up to this point, but it went surprisingly well when I gave it a shot. You don't have to fight it at the end if you can do enough damage to tire it out. At that point, it'll hang on a ledge indefinitely until you deal the fatal blow. At first I thought that maybe my fears were blown out of proportion, but then I got to the skeletons and realized just how much work Iron Flesh was doing for me. I don't really feel like doing all of that over again, so we'll come back to this one when our golem is stronger. But before I leave, I should go ahead and get that token of fidelity I need for Targray to open his shop. He also sells bolt stones. We'll take one and use it to infuse our priest chime with lightning. After this, I went to fight the first rat boss, since it's an easy one to check off on the list. I tried to use Emit Force to deal with the generic rats, but it's not super efficient at clearing out a large group. Sadly, even with Iron Flesh boosting my resistances, the petrification buildup is still too fast for me to deal with. I don't really have any way to defend myself aside from killing the rats before they can get to me, but that wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Every attempt ended with me getting afflicted with some kind of ailment, whether it be poison or petrification. At least with the poison, I have several options to heal it, but with the petrification, the only way to combat it is to increase my resistance to it. Luckily, there is the Ash Knuckle Ring directly below where the boss is, and we don't have to fight the boss to reach it. It definitely made a difference, but I was still dying to this an embarrassing amount of times before I finally made a breakthrough. At this point, I wasn't using my great axe to attack them so much as I was using its momentum to run away from the rats. This is a fight where you'd expect the two-handed moveset to be better, but while it can hit many rats at once, it can also swing too high and fly over them, leaving you more vulnerable than before. For that reason, I tended to stick with the one-handed moveset so I could use a slam as a light attack. All I can say is this fight was terrible and I was very happy to get it out of the way. Something about the Iron Golem getting overwhelmed by a bunch of rats seems lore accurate though. After the first rat fight, I wasn't sure if I should expect the next one to be better or worse. Thankfully, it was the former. You start an advantage in this fight if you have any kind of ranged attack. I was able to kill most of the rat dogs with Emit Force before the authority even jumped down. I used Emit Force for the main part of the fight as well. It likes to jump back and come in with a headbutt that knocks you down, so it was better than the Great Axe in this case. All was going well until the end when it decided to vomit all over me and break all my stuff, but at least repairs are cheap, so it's not too much of a setback. Next, I wanted to try another optional boss. I chose the Smelter Demon for a chance to get that beautiful Ring of Blades +1. It was going pretty well, it's just that towards the end, when it gets all its fire buffs, I couldn't really see anything and I was cornered. I tried again, but nothing changed. For some reason, I'd gravitate towards the corner no matter what, blinded by the Smelter Demon flashing the camera. Let's not jump the gun with those bosses, we haven't even killed the Lost Sinner yet. This gives us a good opportunity to finally bust out the Vanquisher's Fist. Like the real Iron Golem, we can now use our right hand to deal devastating damage with our punches. We can even combo punches into an attack with our Great Axe for maximum devastation to the Lost Sinner. So far, she's one of the easiest bosses we've dealt with. I'll use her souls to get more attunement slots for the rest of our copies of Emit Force. Speaking of easy bosses, Magus in the Congregation is up next on the list, since I'd like to buy that last copy of Emit Force off of Cromwell. This is another pushover boss, so this should be an easy Titanite slab. I suppose I shouldn't really be surprised after what happened with the rats. Group bosses just aren't ideal for an overloaded character. But they won't fool me again. This time I'm going straight for the Magus since I'm strong enough to kill them, before the priests have time to cast their healing spells. With the heaviest hitter of the group defeated, the rest of the congregation doesn't stand a chance against the Iron Golem. Now that we have all our copies of Emit Force, we're ready to try the Executioner's Chariot again. This time I used punches to propel myself forward and conserve stamina. The first mage dropped her robe, which is a crazy rare drop to get in this fight. When she's dead, you can kill her skeletons in a single punch, sometimes several of them at a time. Once I had finally made my way to the other mage, she was too distracted by the battle to revive any skeletons I may have punched, and at long last, I had reached the end of the road where the chariot awaited me to put it out of its misery. Continuing with my rematches, I went back to the Iron Keep to get rid of the Smelter Demon that was pestering me earlier. As usual, I spent the fight with limited visibility in the corner, but this time I was lucky enough to duck under one of its attacks with my own and close the fight before it had time to put me in the vortex. More importantly, the Pursuer mini-boss who takes its place is an easy victory for a better version of the Ring of Blades to boost our physical damage even more than before. I continue working on attunement to eventually get a few more casts of my spells. From here, I start heading towards Dranglake Castle since I noticed that I have over 1 million soul memory and can already open the Shrine of Winter. The Dragonriders return to avenge their disgraced comrade. Having done this before under worse conditions, I went in with way too much confidence, and they took advantage of this. But I could not be deterred by their intimidation tactics. Rather than letting up on my aggression, I doubled down and took out my secret weapon, the Fist. With this, I can pummel my way through a Dragonrider in half the time the stamina-eating Great Axe takes. The remaining Dragonrider is nothing without his meat shield. All he can do is try in vain to knock down an unstoppable force. And what if the unstoppable Iron Golem is confronted with the immovable Iron King? Well, then I guess this force isn't so unstoppable after all. Perhaps that would also mean that the object isn't immovable. The further he pushes us away from him, the more he is compelled to move towards us, once again consumed by his lust for absolute power. When he has been defeated, we can use a bonfire ascetic at the first bonfire to unlock the Dragonrider set in Magarold's shop. I'm only interested in the helm since it vaguely resembles the Golem helm. This one is upgraded with Twinkling Titanite, and I've accumulated quite a bit since I haven't been changing gear, so I'll go ahead and max it out. With the rest of those souls, I'll get a little more attunement. I tried to fight the Rotten again, but every time I kept getting knocked into the fire until I realized I can just enter the fog gate from the other direction. What makes the Rotten particularly annoying for this build is the combos that stun you, so even if you manage to be out of the way on the first one, the next one will knock you down and then the cycle continues. The move you really want him to do is the Vomit move. This one is not as damaging as his melee attacks, and it doesn't stun you, so it's basically free damage. I'm a little worried about the next fight in light of previous group bosses. Obviously I can't use the torch for Freja because I need my left hand for my weapon. 3 spiders down in one swing was very relieving to see. The spiders turned out being so weak that I had nothing to worry about. Unlike the rats, it was actually beneficial to be overloaded because it draws all the spiders towards you. Not only are they less numerous than the rats, they just don't have the same poise-breaking abilities. Freja herself is a minor annoyance at worst. Her laser delays us from advancing towards her, but hardly does any damage. We, on the other hand, do enough damage to knock her head off, which limits her options even further. The only thing she has left that is even slightly threatening are the stomps, but most of those won't connect if you stay in front of her face. You can even kick around her severed head. You gotta appreciate the few opportunities you get to do things like that in this game. Now that we've managed to get our attunement all the way to 43, we finally get an extra cast of Iron Flesh. That gives us an extra chance to cast that we don't have to use fumbling for an herb. All of the old ones have been defeated, so we're left with nothing to do but proceed through the castle to the Looking Glass Knight. I was worried about this one as well for obvious reasons, but it ended up going way better than I expected on the first attempt. I just got unlucky that he summoned the Greatsword guy instead of the Spear guy, since he has a weapon that can stunlock me. This is another case where the one-handed moveset is superior, because you want a weapon that goes in a straight line instead of a side-to-side swing. That way it's less likely to get deflected by the mirror. I ended up trading my Great Axe for my Fist. The Fist is way more accurate, and still does great damage with the help of the ring. I finished the fight with a very close call as he charged up a lightning slash, but was ultimately saved by the bell that his minion didn't seem to hear. We'll get some health, then continue our journey into the Shrine of Amana. The Demon of Song provides us a nice little break before we start getting into the more difficult bosses of the run. I accidentally learned that you can dodge this attack by going under it. Usually I try to wait it out and roll to the side, but this method seems much safer. Our vigor has almost reached the soft cap, so we'll keep working on that until we get to it. This is easy to achieve by killing all the enemies in the Undead Crypt. We've also picked up quite a few soul items by now, and you can use some of those to get our vigor to 50 before we have to fight Velstadt. I feel like this fight can range from forgettably easy to unbelievably annoying, so I have no idea what I should expect this time. It seemed to be going in the forgettably easy direction, at least until he buffed. Then things predictably started going downhill. I don't know if he's actually programmed to punish Estus like the Fume Knight does, but it really feels like he only does that slam when I start chugging. I also hate how he can chain a backdash straight into it and rob me of my healing window. We'll just have to adapt to this situation like we did with the others. If we have less time to heal, we'll just have to triple chug, even if it seems over the top. I started to panic once I'd been cornered like this, but kept my composure, and made a split-second decision to block with my Great Axe instead of trying to use a life gem. This saved me from a potentially fatal attack, but time was running out and I had to end the fight now if I wanted to live. In another instance of insane luck in this run, tanking through his first swing before immediately attacking made the second one fly over my head. You can see that I still had a bit of stamina left, so I shouldn't have been so delayed in delivering the final swing. I was just in disbelief at what had just happened. With no one left to keep the King's Ring out of our filthy hands, Aldia's keep is open to us, and in turn, the Dragon Shrine where more armor awaits. The Guardian Dragon blocks our entrance to the Eyrie. This is just a taste of what's to come with the other dragon fights in this game. Dragons are terrible for this build to fight, and all 3 of the dragons in this game love to spam their fire breath, and that's exactly what makes it so bad. You'd think the Iron Golem would have an advantage in this fight since it has a few dragon parts mixed in, but it doesn't have a clue about how to fight them. All it knows is that it's hopeless to try to get close to them, so we need to use our wind to damage them from afar. I love this riveting gameplay too, but it can't keep going on like this. We need some fire defense to take the edge off its attacks, so I go to Broom Tower to get the +3 version of the Flame Quartz ring. Once again, I had my recording paused, so I accidentally picked it up off camera, but you can see where I got it from this corpse I just ran past. This ring was a very big help here. Combining it with Iron Flesh makes the fire hardly noticeable. I got better luck with its attack patterns this time and was able to consistently punish it with Emit Force, turning it into the quick and easy fight I'm used to. Now we can proceed to Dragon Shrine, where we finally encounter the Drake Keepers that drop their set. I'll stay here until I get the chest piece and the helmet. Those are the ones I think resemble the Iron Golem the most. This didn't take as long as I thought, and soon enough I had at least 1 copy of every piece of the set. Looking at the armor, I would still say the Alonne Captain armor is a closer resemblance, but the Drake Keeper armor resembles it in different ways. For example, I really like the design in the middle, and I think it gives us an element that the Alonne Captain armor lacks, which is something resembling the whole of the original armor set, where you'd find the core, even if it's very subtle. After this, I suppose it's time to challenge the Throne Watcher and Defender. This is another one of those fights that I feel could go either way. Luckily, most of their attacks do little poise damage, so they don't have too many chances to stunlock me, like some of the other gank bosses did. The Defender also has one of the least intimidating grabs in the game. In fact, this grab may have helped me out here because it established distance from the Watcher, who was more likely to attack next at that point. I killed the Watcher just before she revived the Defender. Looks like I also forgot to make myself overloaded, but it's okay. This fight hardly lasted longer than the duration of 2 Iron Fleshes anyway. I'm not sure what I want to level, but more damage is always a good choice, so we'll get some extra strength. Now we need to track down Grandal in all 3 of his locations, so we can go into the Abyss and start our quest to kill the optional bosses, starting with Darklurker. Of course, before that, we'll be dealing with a much more worthy opponent who shares our lifestyle. Phase 1 isn't so bad, and we do a lot of damage considering their high physical resistances. They also stagger very easily, which often leads straight into Phase 2 for a chance to do double the damage. But sometimes trying to hit both only leads to hitting neither, so try to focus on one at a time. This fight was one of the more difficult ones of the playthrough, only getting overshadowed by some of the DLC bosses. The key to this is patience. Even when it seems like they'll never stop casting spells and fireballs, you just have to heal through it until one of them decides to approach you. There should be a pattern to it. When one retreats and teleports who knows where, you worry about the other one moving towards you. Luckily, I had already gotten the boss 2 hits away from death, so I could tank through whatever it threw at me. This one's not an optional boss, I just want to go ahead and fight it now to get the farming spot, and to delay the ancient dragon fight as much as possible. Sadly, this boss wasn't difficult, so we won't be delaying it too much. Wait, let me fight it again. I really need the Ring of Giants +2. I can't forget the Divine Blessing either. We'll need a lot of these if we're gonna fight the ancient dragon. After dumping several levels into Endurance, I go to the Memory of Oro to get the steel set from behind the Pharaoh's contraption. This is another good option for when we want to mix and match armor pieces to achieve the Iron Golem look. To prepare for the boss, I go through the whole Eyrie to kill all the Titanite lizards, then back to Broom Tower for the Dispelling Ring +1 for an extra boost to fire defense. I fully upgrade all of my armor and swap out the Drake Keeper armor for the Alonne Captain armor since it has better fire defense. All we have to do now is aggro it so we can trigger the fight. I start by casting Emit Force so I can stay in front of it, but it ended up pushing me so close to the head that I couldn't even aim the spell correctly. I've learned from experience that you do not want to be under this boss if you're overloaded. The stomps are too dangerous. Even with my 50 vigor, I wouldn't bat an eye if I got one-shotted. While the head is generally a safer place to hang around, it's not an easy place to hit. That's why I was trying to make Emit Force work so badly. Even if it didn't have the issues with the lock-on, the damage is too bad to justify using it, so we'll have to find a way to hit the head with the Great Axe. The Ancient Dragon doesn't really like it when you stay around its head. It tends to fly away and land on top of you. See, what did I tell you? While things may seem grim, don't worry, there's good news. It turns out it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought to hit the head with the axe. Don't underestimate the range of jump attacks. Another thing I learned is that the fire is a lot easier to dodge if you're in front of it before it flies away. Most of the time you'll be just out of range and can safely wait it out. And we ended things by sending off our sort of kin with a powerful gust of wind. We'll honor its memory by getting more strength. We can officially start the DLC with the Crown of the Sunken King. Before facing Alonne, I got some stylish Drakeblood leggings to wear to the fight. Alonne isn't much of a threat on her own, and certainly not her melee attacks, so staying close to her really limits her options. But she knows this, and will try her best to establish a distance between us, sometimes teleporting away to spam more orbs. She also knows that she's too weak to face the Iron Golem on her own, so she brings the help of Velstadt. Next time we'll have to come more prepared and bring the Dark Quartz Ring +3 from across the street. She did end up summoning Velstadt again, so I just focused on him this time, since he's the only one who can really do much against my iron flesh. Luckily, when she started to summon again, it was just some skeletons, so we'll be fine. Now for some wasteful levels into intelligence. I did this because I was trying to get some better magic defense, but ended up forgetting about it. I didn't want to do Sin next because I'm still scared of dragon fights, so instead I'll just go to the Cave of the Dead and fight the Gank Squad. I thought maybe this one wouldn't be so bad, they're just a couple of NPCs, I can just tank through them. What are they gonna do about it? Oh, how wrong I was. This fight was so terrible I was tempted to skip it. I mean, I've done that before, so what's the big deal? But most of the time, I only skip bosses if I find them redundant. Like in the worst damage run, I only skipped them because they didn't have any significant elemental resistances. This run is different. I want to test my build against everything, so I can't give up. Even if that means getting killed for an hour with no end in sight. This fight is reminiscent of the overloaded Twin Sanctuary Guardians fight I did a couple videos back. It feels completely luck-based. I said this run was about luck, but I didn't say it was always good luck. I can't really develop a strategy to isolate one of them because I'm not in control of my own movement. It's hard enough to hit one when my character can't turn around to face them. Even when I'm locked on, it's really hard to hit the target I want to hit. And there are two of them swarming around me to make things even more confusing. The worst part about all of this is the archer in the background who throws a wrench or shoots an arrow into the works anytime I have the tiniest punishment window. The grave robber loves to circle behind and backstab me as well. Thankfully, this is a solvable issue. All I had to do for this was switch back to the turtle shell armor. I also tried the cheese, but just making it to the spot was an ordeal that I couldn't handle. By now, I'd gone off the deep end and was desperate for an escape from my eternal misery. This is the fight that made me realize it may be time to start farming the Giant Lord if one of the weaker DLC bosses is breaking through my iron defenses. I put the first wave of levels into Endurance to cancel out the stamina I lose when bled out in the fight, and the next wave goes to Strength for as much damage as I can get. I was lucky enough to corner Varg and kill him off first before he could run off and heal. He causes the most problems with his dragon tooth. The grave robber, on the other hand, is dangerous due to her speed and bleed, but she's easier to stunlock and much worse at stunlocking me. Both of the threats have been taken care of. The archer is a joke by himself, so the fight might as well be over before I even approach him. I was so relieved to finally beat the gank squad, but little did I know, this was only the second hardest boss in the run. The worst was yet to come. I know what you're thinking, but it's not Sen. You can still see for yourself how much fun I was having with this one, though. Surprisingly, this one didn't take that long, but because every attempt was so drawn out with him flying away and spitting out his toxic breath constantly, it ate through the divine blessings I had gotten from farming. I had to get very lucky with his choice of attacks in order to win. That might as well be the motto of the run. Next, we go to the Ivory King DLC, because I'm still scared of fighting the bosses in the second one. Ava can be very annoying, but this doesn't seem like it will be too much of a struggle for the Iron Golem. The main problem is I'm not getting any chances to attack, because most of her attacks knock me down. I also felt like everything I was doing was too slow. I could never cast quickly enough or use a life gem in time. This inspired me to level up Attunement again to increase both my casting speed and my agility. I didn't bother with ADP in this playthrough because I don't need to roll, but I overlooked how useful agility is for a build that requires constant healing. I noticed a difference instantly with the Ava fight, and was finally able to beat her and progress to the rest of the city. 3 knights await the commands of the Iron Golem. The Golem has outgrown Sen's fortress and is seeking its higher purpose. I'm so proud of it. Originally, I was going to only use Iron Flesh on the Ivory King part, but found that it would be more optimal to use it against the Knights as well, since their attacks are so easy to tank. I can farm as many herbs as I want, so there's no reason to hoard them. I only died once in this fight, and it was against the Charred Lois Knights. The Ivory King himself was ridiculously easy. My last knight didn't survive long, but it was long enough for me to take out a decent chunk of his health before he started focusing on me. I almost died here because he kept spamming the delayed slash. He did this move 3 times in a row before deciding it might be time to do something different. With their king dead, the king's pets in the frigid outskirts have lost their purpose, so we'll give them renewed purpose in the form of one last fight to the death. This one took a few tries, but less than Ava. This one is very simple. Just keep healing, wait out the buff on the second phase, and you'll be fine. Finally going into the Crown of the Iron King DLC, we start our adventures with the Blue Smelter Demon to warm up for Fume Night. Blue Smelty wasn't as difficult as the base game version. I actually had a lot more fun with this one. When the Smelter Demon finally falls, I anxiously descend to the bottom of the tower for my fated battle with the Fume Knight. But in another twist of fate, I nearly beat this on my first try. That I did not expect. Fume Knight was one of the bosses who I predicted would be the most difficult to do with these restrictions. But it turns out a tank build with Iron Flesh is a viable option against him. It got a little tense at the last moment when I didn't have an opening to reapply Iron Flesh, but I stayed calm and realigned myself for the final hit. Judging from how the Fume Night went, Sir Alonne should be just as easy, if not easier. He's just another easily staggerable humanoid boss. Remember that my initial expectation for the Fume Night was the complete opposite of reality, and this fight was only similar to Fume Night in that regard. I never would have expected this one to be the most difficult fight in the run, and that's because I've had the luxury of movement, and never quite comprehended the horror that is Sir Alonne's grab. Even when Iron Flesh is active, the extra damage he does with the buff is brutal. I either spend all my time healing, forcing me to waste an instance of Iron Flesh, or I try to tank through a few of his hits, only for him to do the grab again and kill me. Seriously, he shouldn't be able to do the grab if his sword is still buffed. That's not fair to the Iron Golem. This is the only other fight where I seriously considered skipping it and calling it a day, but instead of doing that, I went to fight Vendrick instead to take my mind off it. That says a lot. I went to Vendrick because I thought he might be easier, the boss who's notorious for one-shotting high-vigor characters. While he was definitely easier for me than Sir Alonne, this fight is not easy to do overloaded. Vendrick is basically made to counter this build. His damage is so high that sometimes I thought I forgot to put on Iron Flesh. Vendrick has several blind spots that we can take advantage of despite our disadvantages. Because he's so tall, sometimes his sword will flat out miss you if you keep crawling towards his legs while he's starting to attack. Even if you only manage to evade one of 3 hits, you'll be in a much better position to heal, buff, or use a spell recovery item. He's much slower than Sir Alonne, so his punishment windows are more generous. As always, luck plays a significant role in whether or not his sword flies over your head since movement is so limited. With practice, I adjusted to the pace of the fight and was able to out-heal him on most occasions. Elizabeth mushrooms are very helpful since they heal for a set amount of time and don't stop at full health like life gems. Nashandra is a boss that I know will be easy. She doesn't have the DLC buff that the others had, so there's no chance for her to surprise me with anything crazy. She managed to defy my expectations in the opposite way. She somehow turned out to be even easier than I expected. At most, I thought maybe the curse wells would be a decent threat since I can't move out of their vicinity to stop the constant draining of health, but even they failed to make a dent in my health with all the healing items I'd used. I considered resetting at the bonfire before Aldia, but he's also an easy boss, so I didn't even waste my time. This boss was more annoying than difficult. Sure, he can knock me back easily, but what's the point if it barely does any damage? The teleporting is also quite annoying if he chooses to make me walk all the way over to him. There isn't much to say about this one since it's more of a waiting game than a fight. Now I really have no choice and have to fight Sir Alonne. Just in case, I maxed out my strength beforehand. Even if the damage boost isn't significant, it at least will give me some more physical defense. As much as I hate to say it, I did not enjoy this fight at all in this run, and normally this fight is the highlight of my playthroughs. It felt like a completely different fight. It was just a constant cycle of RNG, where I lose if he grabs and maybe win if he doesn't. Hence my winning attempt, where he didn't do the grab until very late into the fight, after he had already been staggered. I also learned to use my divine blessings liberally in this fight. There's no use in saving farmable items when you're on the last boss of the playthrough. When I had finally done it, I could feel the power of all the boss souls I'd collected as they became one with the core of the golem. This marked the end of the Iron Golem's journey through Drangleic, and the beginning of its ascent to the throne. Thank you everyone for watching this journey from start to finish. And of course, thanks Mancakes for making the whole thing possible. I had fun doing a challenge that's different than the kind of things I usually do, and I hope Mancakes had fun on his end as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out his side of the collab as well, and of course, both of our channels have many more challenges for the Soul series if you'd like to see more. Until next time!